To this now, the ANC has taken action to bolster its structures in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal, acknowledging the challenges in these crucial provinces. The ANC has restructured the provincial executive committees. Mdumiseni Ntuli, a member of the National Working Committee, says reconfiguring the ANC provincial structures in these two provinces is not an attack on provincial leaders, but a step to rebuild the party. To help us unpack this further, we're joined by political analyst Professor Bheki Mngomezulu. Prof, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time. Let's start with the reconfiguration itself. I mean, it's an attempt by the African National Congress to take what would have been provinces that performed dismally, put some polish on them, make them shinier again, with the hope that they will do better. I mean, is that something that certainly will help?
Butawa, thank you very much for having me, and good afternoon to your viewers. For starters, I don't think the approach is right. The intention is good, but the approach is totally wrong for a couple of reasons. One, if you look at how KwaZulu-Natal performed and how Gauteng performed, and then you juxtapose that with how the Western Cape performed, you will realize that KwaZulu-Natal was the worst performing province for reasons that are known to everyone, including the ANC. And then Gauteng did better than the Western Cape, but nothing is being said about the Western Cape. So for me, the approach is wrong. The moment we start tackling this problem province by province, we are missing the point. I did an analysis of how the ANC performed in 2019 and then compared with the performance in 2024. I came to the conclusion that in all the 9 provinces, the ANC did not do better in 2024. Even provinces that did very well, the likes of Limpopo, Eastern Cape, but then if you compare with 2019, they went down. So then the reality, therefore, is that the ANC was supposed to ask itself one question. Why did the ANC perform badly in the 2024 general election holistically, and then deal with the issues, not in a piecemeal fashion? Because the moment you do it this way, come 2029, then 2 other provinces will perform better, and then others will perform dismally. Then we'll shift the focus to the other provinces. So we are doing this in a piecemeal fashion, and I don't think it's good for the party. So the intention is good, but the approach is totally wrong.
I wanted to say to you that the lack of transparency, instead of promoting renewal, might, of course, promote further divisions.
Yes, but Tabo, sorry about the interruption. Thanks to load shedding. Yeah, no, basically, it's a transparency, but it's also consistency. Because then if there is consistency, we'll expect that the language that is used in Gauteng will be the same language that is used in KwaZulu-Natal. In the event that the two are not in line, then it means there is something missing there. So which means, therefore, that when the decision was taken to reconfigure these 2 provinces, there wasn't any uniformity, which therefore means that the party must go back and then check if, in fact, the approach is a correct one. As I've already indicated, my view is that the intention is good, but the approach is totally wrong. Because if they're all reading from the same script, then we'd expect that they will be doing things the same way. Which goes back to the point I made earlier on before we interrupted, that the constitution of the ANC is clear that between elections, the NEC has a responsibility to take decisions. Now, in this case, if things went wrong in Gauteng and went wrong in KwaZulu-Natal and went wrong in the Western Cape, the question will be, where was the NEC? What was it doing? What was the NWC doing before the elections? Because problems did not start on the 29th of May. There were already signs that things were not going well. What did the leadership do? That is where the problems are for me, not necessarily in the provinces.
Well, let's stick with that question then of where was the leadership, or what is the leadership doing? There are some names that have been bandied about, and we must confess that nothing has really been finalized. We don't really know which leader or who will be sent where, but this has already begun to raise a debate around the talent pool, whether there is enough talent within the African National Congress that will be able to do what they are setting out to do.
I think the ANC does have talent. The problem is factionalism. If you and I, Butabo, are in the ANC, you are in faction A, I'm in faction B, you have all the requisite skills and knowledge, but your faction is not the popular one, I will get the nod. And the question is, will I save the party? The answer is an emphatic no. So the problem for me is not necessarily that the ANC does not have people who are capable. There are people who are capable, there are people who can lead the province, but then for them to be able to execute their mandate, they must get direction from the leadership. If the leadership is not as capable as it should be, or is not as united as it should be, then of course that is a recipe for disaster. So in addressing this issue, my view is that forget about addressing it in a piecemeal fashion. Look at the question holistically and then identify the role players so that when you come up with a mechanism to rescue the situation, you are sure that this will be done and dusted. Not to solve a problem for one province today and then tomorrow you find yourself doing the same thing to another province. It's not going to help the party, more especially because we have so many political parties that are contesting for elections, and then we have the elections coming next year, the local government elections. There will not be enough time for the party to regroup. So therefore, you need to do this thing and do it very well instead of doing it the manner in which they've done it.
Is the ANC inviting maybe more of a challenge to itself by bringing in what others are saying are unelected outsiders brought into provincial structures that have not been dissolved? So the provincial structure remains. So you've got some elected officials there, but you're bringing in unelected ones. Are you not asking for trouble?
I think there is a section in the constitution of the ANC which allows it to reconfigure the organization at a particular level, in this case at a provincial level, without necessarily disbanding it. Because if you disband it, then it means you have to call another election. And then the question will be, do you have enough resources to do that? Do you have enough time to do that? There are a couple of questions that will kick in. But the manner in which they've done it is not necessarily unconstitutional. That is in terms of the ANC constitution. But if that information is not relayed to the regions and to the branches, definitely people are going to cry foul and say that I was elected at a conference. How come that I'm no longer the chairperson of the organization at a provincial level? How come that I'm no longer the secretary at a provincial level when in fact I was elected at a conference and there's been no other conference in between? There are people who are going to ask those questions, and correctly so, on condition that they've not been given the information they are supposed to be given, which then takes us to the point of political education, which is lacking, not just in the ANC, but in almost all political parties. Unless people have the information, they're going to make their own conclusions, some of which might not necessarily be informed, some of which might not be in line with the constitution of their own political parties.
Is this likely going to have any real impact, particularly as you mentioned, going into this next round of local government elections?
Honestly speaking, I don't think so. Not just because the time is of essence, but also because the problems in the ANC are not necessarily confined to Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal, nor are they confined to the Western Cape for that matter. We know for a fact that the Western Cape was once under the ANC. It was given to the DA on a silver platter when there was a conflict between Ibrahim Rasool and, of course, Mngomezulu Skwatsha. They know that. It's not as if they don't know. Now, the question is, did they draw lessons from that Western Cape experience when dealing with Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal? I'm not too sure that has happened. And given that we're having elections next year and the problems are so many, then the question will be, as you try to reconfigure, will the new incumbents be having enough time to address all those issues before the elections? I'm not sure. Will the structures be informed and be prepared for the local government elections next year? I'm not too sure. So the onus is on the ANC from the top level, that is the NEC, down to the branches to make sure that they double their effort in terms of preparing themselves for the elections and addressing the questions that led to the ANC performing so dismally in the May 2024 general election.
Professor Bheki Mngomezulu, much appreciated. Thank you for your intervention this afternoon. That's political analyst there, Professor Bheki Mngomezulu. Let's take a break. We'll continue in a moment with what's making news here on the Newsfeed. Stay with us.